think we're all pretty convinced right now, no, that Bitcoin mining is pretty good at heating stuff. Yeah? Do we agree? Feeling bullish on Bitcoin mining as well. I think we've sort of probably sold that Bitcoin mining works, at least for heat, and also for, just mining for energy's sake, as well as grid rebalancing. And I mean, I've reported on Bitcoin miners heating swimming pools, it's dried out timber mills, it's even made beef jerky. I don't know if you knew this, but you can buy Bitcoin miner heat-dried beef jerky. It's actually quite delicious. And the most important use case for me is that Bitcoin mining heat dries out my wetsuit after I've gone surfing in Costa Caparica. So I think we're all sold on that. But my first question is, what do you do in the summer? You don't need the heat then, do you?
Well, we personally do at Kläger Group. We need all through, when you're producing plastics and cosmetics, there are many, many use cases that do need the heat year-round.
But for the regular miners, yourself, what do you do in your Austrian lovely... I'm picturing a beautiful chalet, by the way.
He sweats.
Is it? Does it become a sauna in the summer?
It's quite old, but it's really nice. So in my special case, I don't have solar or anything like that on the roof, so I really only run the miners in 6 months of the heating period. And I have really fast amortization period, only running the miner 6 months because I have such a high return with heat and Bitcoin mining. But we have two really large customer segments. The first one is Bitcoiners, which want to heat with Bitcoin and heat cheaper and more sustainable. And the second one is renewable energy guys. It's also the perfect machine to surplus monetize your photovoltaic in the summer, so you can do both at the same time. And for example, in Austria and Germany, still 30% of the PV electricity production is while you are still in the heating period. So then it's the ultimate win situation. You're monetizing your surplus electricity and you're using the heat at the same time, and you can't do that with any other heating option.
Okay. I'm going to ask Harald just one more question before we break out to the audience. So what regulatory or cultural hurdles, perhaps, stand in the way of making Bitcoin miner heat sort of integrated further into not just grids, but homes? When are we going to see this really properly penetrate society at large, really? So it was for Harald, but if you want to jump in, Rachel, feel free.
No, I would never take words out of Harald's mouth.
Please do. It's very, very difficult to answer that question, to be very honest with you. I think what makes me super hopeful is the enthusiasm and the perseverance of the people themselves who discover these solutions. I don't know how it is for you, but maybe you have started to think about could this mean for me? What could this mean for me? Do I see other cases? And that's exactly how our conversations usually go. Because I was inspired by your question now, like, what do you do with the heat? But our customers come back to us and they say, well, why should I waste the heat? I could do my dried beef jerky thing. Yeah, I have a similar situation. And it immediately sort of links the power generation to the multiple uses of mining plus use the heat to do something. Warm water is a very hot candidate there as well. So why I'm saying this is, it makes me super bullish on this level. It's a very inspirational forum where we learn from each other, get inspired, go home, and we think about the next steps. And I'm not expecting anyone, including myself, to sacrifice our lives by having conversations with regulators, because we all know we discover this thing when we are ready. It comes to us. And I think we need to have the same patience with the people that we probably need on that journey. And because it's so difficult to predict that, it's very hard to say when this critical point, this critical mass will be there. But we see that it's such a loaded atmosphere that you need one politician that says, hey, we should mine with nuclear, and it just creates huge waves. So what was a career risk, and this is very much the problem in the energy sector, it's a very comfy business, we all know that. They make a lot of money, there's very little incentive to change and change the practices, because if we change the practices, it becomes fundamentally a different business, and who will stick their head out and risk their career for that? But we see that it's such a loaded atmosphere that it doesn't need much for this to really ripple through the system. And I think part of our job is to get our head down, get our hands dirty, be respectful in the conversations, be perseverant in the conversations, and then just wait for this moment until, you know, the light bulb goes off.
Amazing. Yeah, it's true. When it comes to Rachel, I just wanted to comment on that we are seeing some ministers, some key opinion leaders sticking their necks out. I mean, Daniel had the quote this morning of the French minister who spoke vocally about, it was Bitcoin mining, not just Bitcoin, right? Yeah. We have a German minister, I mean, I know she's leaving soon, but she was very vocal about Bitcoin mining and Bitcoin. And in the UK, we even had some former members of parliament who speak very positively about Bitcoin mining. It's a shame they couldn't do it when they actually had their seats, but that's clearly how it works. So yeah, we are seeing a sort of a sea change, a sort of a cultural shift, but I'd still say that we are aeons behind the likes of the US and other parts. Rachel?
We're not.
We're not. Oh, great.
No, we're really not. I mean, if it wants to give you any inspiration, a Portuguese member of parliament contacted me via LinkedIn, and I've got an appointment with him this afternoon at 3 o'clock. I think what we're going to find is it's the same as with Bitcoin. It's gradually and then suddenly. And I think that what is going to change the opinions best of the regulators is when the energy companies understand the implications of Bitcoin mining. And so this is where we work very hard. Yes, we do want to educate the regulators with EBA, the work that we're doing, but we really want to educate the energy companies. And I sit in the middle of this. So we have a once a month open house lab tour. So we've got a laboratory in Germany where we do research into renewable energies with Bitcoin mining. And when we opened up 2 years ago, sitting around the table, you had your Bitcoin maxis. Yeah? Last week we had one, and we had a big power company of Germany, we had a big solar producing company, and we had a heating company. They're coming to the table and they're understanding what's going on. They're not yet talking about it, but we're so close to putting out the first big pilot project. And once that goes out and somebody will stand up and say, I've done this, then you just watch them all pile in there, and we won't know what we don't already. We're a little bit overloaded. It's going to then move so very quickly. So you need the first person who stands up and says, "Okay, we're looking into this," and then everybody's going to follow very quickly.
That's amazing. Is it bad that I really want it to be Portugal? I hope your meeting this afternoon goes really well. We are going to open up some questions now from the audience. Yes, first one from Daniel. We have a roaming mic, so do just wait for the microphone.
1, 2, 1, 2. So I think it would be really interesting to get a side-by-side comparison of a resistive heater and a heat pump, because I think that's that's a common question, and I don't know who would be best to answer that, but I think that's an important thing to understand.
On that, I just texted my dad, who's in the process of buying a heat pump right now. I sent him the slide from your comparison, and I said, "Dad, what are you doing? Buy a Bitcoin miner heater instead." But you guys are the brains behind this.
We have, for example, an advanced calculator on the website where you can plug your numbers in, what's your electricity cost, and then you can calculate, does it make sense or not. For example, if you live in Norway and you pay 5 cents per kilowatt hour and you make, even in the bear market, 10 cents with Bitcoin mining, the heat pump doesn't make any sense, especially because it's super cold in Norway. If you are in Germany and you pay 50 cents per kilowatt hour, it can make economical sense. But let's imagine in 10 years, we're also developing at the same time Bitcoin central heating systems. In 10 years, if you have the possibility to pay, for example, 50,000 euros to get a heat pump central heating system, or you pay 10,000 euros for a Bitcoin central heating systems, you have to catch up 40,000 euros with the heat pump, not with the Bitcoin mining. And so my thesis, and it's a strong thesis, Bitcoin heating is the main heating option for the future. You will heat with electricity anyway, and you will heat with electricity which has to be used anyway. So I think in 20, 30, 40 years, most of the hash rate will go from mining farms to homes where you will heat with Bitcoin heating, with decentralized space heaters or with central heating systems, because it just makes sense.
This ties into what Rachel was saying about how Bitcoin would become the waste product. You're effectively looking for the heat with the Bitcoin
Yeah.
mining.
Can I tell a little story about that? It's actually happening in France at the moment. So there's a fantastic company in France which they produce this radiator, slimline radiator. They had a team of engineers who changed the ASICs around so that it fit into this into this slimline radiator. And they were trying to market it as heat your home and earn money. And nobody bought it. So they removed the last sentence, heat your home. They've been selling like hotcakes, but now the company gets the Bitcoin. They wanted the customer to get the Bitcoin, but the customers didn't understand what it was. And so, so there are already so many homes being heated by Bitcoin, and the customer's not aware of it.
And of course, France makes the first slimline Bitcoin.
Of course they do.
Of course. Okay, another question over here.
Thank you. I find your point that you just made really interesting, and I have a background in engineering, and I just graduated 2 years ago. And I was actually curious about what you see as the role of education in the development of these technologies, because I studied mechanical engineering, industrial ecology, material science, specializing in sustainability, and never have any of these topics come up. And I think also Bitcoin comes as quite a, I've heard of it, but haven't done much. And as far as everybody I know in my surroundings, nobody is talking about this, and I'm very active in sustainability communities back home. So I'm just kind of curious about how you see that playing a role and how we're teaching younger generations as well what the future possibilities are, because it seems like we're missing out.
We're completely missing out. I mean, my youngest son is currently doing a master's in international economics and something else, economics, and they haven't mentioned a word of Bitcoin. Also, my son who was doing international finance, not a word of Bitcoin. I would say with our company at the moment, 80% is education. And it's a real long haul. So we've been in talks with these energy companies for over a year, trying to get to the highest echelons to actually make the decision to, okay, let's go ahead with this and do the pilot project. So education is key, and that's what we're really spending our time on.
Would you guys like to jump in? I can talk about this for days.
Yeah, it's a super important point, and I think it's also, to be quite frank with you, we do this education because we think there's a higher purpose in everything what we do, but we're businessmen and businesswomen. So this education also serves a very, very egoistic purpose, because there is nothing more powerful than a person that was skeptical and that had a light bulb moment. That person will run for you miles. And you will never know, you can never feed this into the brain or into the heart, the unlocking of energy and curiosity and ingenuity of how this person will then run for you in ways that you have never thought of. And I think this is so addictive about this Bitcoin thing, because we learn, we've profited from so much education ourselves, otherwise we wouldn't be sitting here. So it becomes natural that you do the same thing, but it always serves an egoistic purpose as well. And I'm not ashamed to talk about it. There's an altruistic win and there is an egoistic win. And this is incentive alignment that we talk a lot about. And then you are free to choose who you're listening to. And I think there is merit in pushing more into the institutionals. But the truth being told is, if we look at the egoistic and the altruistic motive, there is not much win for us as business people, because the universities, there's no business to be done, like real business to be done. So we are hopeful that the word spreads and that university people and students come to us, and we see this happening already, because there's just so much more career win in taking your own path in a way. Yeah.
One of the big problems that we do have is that all of the crypto assets get thrown into the same basket. So you have all the other cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin put into the same basket. And when you look at the economic monetary incentives, who is paying the money to the universities, to the academics to carry out this research? Bitcoin isn't a company. There's nobody who's chucking Bitcoin at academic, and this is a problem for us. I mean, I had an interview this last week with the European Commission in the fame of Mika. They had never heard of any of this that is going on. The very first question that the women posed to me was, but shouldn't we be using less energy? And this is, this is at that level. And so, yeah.
They don't understand their own regulations.
They didn't understand their own regulations, but you have one conversation at a time, and it's very, very important that you speak the language of the person who's sitting at the table opposite. We're not trying to show people that they're wrong. You're trying to catch them where they are, and what works best is show, don't tell. So if we can come up with these projects that are going on in Europe, I mean, we were sitting yesterday at lunch with someone who's got high up in an energy company here in Portugal, and they didn't really know anything about Bitcoin. So what does this wonderful chap do here? Sends him a bit of lightning with his ring on a phone, and you could see his eyes pop. You know, if you want to teach somebody about Bitcoin, show them how it works, and that will persuade them far quicker than 3 hours of lectures about how the blockchain works.
No, for sure. And I know it does sound kind of dark in a way, like why aren't universities educating people about this critical, fundamentally important technology? But also there's a tremendous opportunity too. You can really move the needle, you can be that first mover. And that, for me at least, was tremendously exciting. Like, I was a mainstream financial journalist before making Bitcoin videos around the world. And I still get loads of comments on YouTube and Twitter about, wow, I never knew this was possible. And then I started making content on TikTok, where of course all the Gen Zs are and the younger people, and people were like, this cannot be true. Like, this is bullshit, basically. And I was like, wow, we need to speak to young people, we need to speak to, of course, people in, you know, positions of authority around Europe. But what we can all do collectively in this room is go away and talk about this and research it further and use your own voice to amplify and to elevate what Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining is doing for the world. And, you know, as Daniel's talk was testament to this morning, there are so few good arguments against Bitcoin mining now. I'm still trying to work out what the best arguments against Bitcoin mining are too. I imagine it's something you guys think about too, because sometimes Bitcoin does sound too good to be true, and often when things are too good to be true, they are. But yeah, the more and more I learn about Bitcoin, the more and more I document Bitcoin and investigate Bitcoin mining around the world, the more and more convinced I get that I think this is genuinely one of those keys to unlocking tremendous energy potential, tremendous renewable energy potential, and tremendous sort of economic freedoms for the entire world. So all power to you, and I hope that you manage to sort of network a little bit among your peers and start moving the needle where you can. Any more questions, or did you want to jump in on that, Max, at all?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, from our perspective, we don't have any customers if we don't educate. So Bitcoin heaters are a very controversial topic if you never heard about it. So we have a lot of traffic on our website. We have 30 to 80,000 persons per month on the website, but they usually don't buy because they don't get it. So the interesting thing is now we try to educate the people as simple as possible on the website, and we can see it in our conversion rate, how good our education is. For example, the best thing was a super short 1-minute video how Bitcoin heaters work. The conversion rate immediately increased. Or a super simple calculator which compares all the different heating options. So that is our part of education. If the customer doesn't get it, he doesn't buy it. And often we get asked the question, okay, this sounds too good to be true, but what happens if Bitcoin is 0 tomorrow? And they automatically have to study Bitcoin, because you don't buy a €1,000 space heater if you think Bitcoin will go to 0 tomorrow. So yeah, Bitcoin get educated by studying the cheapest heating option.